Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a worth the buy or not foundation review on the new NYX Cosmetics Can't Stop, Won't Stop Full Coverage Foundation. This is an up to 24-hour wear matte foundation and I'm just so excited. And actually this is a really unique new foundation because they have launched so many shades. I want to say between 35 and 40 shades. They worked really closely with Alyssa Ashley, and she is somebody that is so beautiful and was able to work with them to really come up with awesome shades for darker complexions, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. This foundation, I want to say I purchased it for like around $14. And then I also purchased actually the primer. This is a matte primer. It's the same collection, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. This one, I think was $10.99, but I think you could purchase a NYX product for full price and then get one for 50% off. So I got a pretty good deal. I want to say it was like $17 in total or maybe $20. So it wasn't too bad compared to like a lot of high-end products that are like $40 starting point and then you have to spend another $30 to get the primer. So this is really, really good stuff. So I already went ahead and did my morning skincare routine. So now we can just go ahead and literally move on to the primer. So this is supposed to be a matte primer. That is supposed to prep your skin for super smooth foundation application. It's supposed to be a comfortable matte, so it's not going to be one of those matte formulas that is kind of like, you know, really thick. I feel like there's nothing worse than a really thick primer that's just going to kind of make everything too dry before you even put on the product. So I'm excited and I was really curious to try this. And we're only going to be priming one side because I really want to see the difference of using the primer and not using the primer. So we're only going to be doing this side with primer and then this side we're going to be leaving it without primer. So let's go ahead and take it. Okay. And you get 0.84 ounces. What I like to do always is kind of rub the product into my skin to kind of like warm it up. And then I take my fingers and start to apply it on the skin. Ooh, yeah, this is matte. So I have to say, if you're somebody that doesn't have really extreme oily skin, I wouldn't recommend trying this because once you set it down, it's like matte. Like it like locks it in. You can see how, do you see that? It's kind of like clinging on to some areas. So unless you have really oily skin, you probably will not like this primer just right off the bat from like the consistency because it is kind of flaking off. And you want to make sure that you really like kind of warm up that product, either in the back of your hand or with your fingers. Once that's in there, it's in there. I'm going to apply just a tiny bit more now that I know how the consistency goes on the skin. But this time I'm going to apply it on my finger like that. And I'm going to just warm up the product and just kind of dab it around my nose because that's where I get really oily. Here on my cheek, it is clinging on a little bit to those dry patches right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my NYX foundation. Like I mentioned, we're not going to be using any primer here because I really want to see the difference. And I purchased this in the shade Golden. I'm hoping that this one looks nice. I think it will work out because it's kind of similar color as my Makeup Forever one. Makeup Forever one like matches me perfectly. So it has a pump, and this one comes with 1 full ounce, so that's awesome. The consistency feels nice. It doesn't look too thick. After applying the primer, I was like, I hope the foundation isn't too thick because I don't know how that's going to work together. But this is actually a pretty good consistency. It's not too thick, but it's not like super runny. It's like a good in between. It feels very moisturizing. So I'm going to take my Morphe sponge and I'm just going to begin blending on the side that we primed. Blends very easily, you can see that very quickly. I'm wearing these hoops and they're getting in the way. It looks like you have a nice like soft subtle powder on the face over the foundation. It's giving me matte vibes. I love a foundation that's matte that can give me like a soft like powdery touch in the end, and I feel like that's the finish it's giving me. I'm gonna take a little bit more because there's an area right here where I feel like I can still see a little tiny bit of my redness. So I'm just gonna dab that. like this coverage, and it honestly feels like I have nothing on my skin whatsoever. Okay, so this is the foundation on. You can see the difference between foundation, and no foundation whatsoever. Redness completely on fleek, fully covered. We used 1.5 pumps for this. And the reason I'm calling it the second pump by 1.5 is because I only used it in certain areas where I felt like I could still see some redness. So I used it right here and then along right here. But it looks very, very beautiful on the skin. We're gonna see right now if it makes a big difference not having the primer because we didn't prime on this side. But the difference is really nice. Like, it is a matte foundation right off the bat. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the other side, but on this side we're gonna go ahead and use our brush, and we are going to start applying it on the skin. Remember that this is the side with no primer, so we're about to see if it makes a big difference to use that primer. I'm actually noticing a difference, which is great because sometimes I do not notice differences. But right now, I am noticing a difference. I do have to say, it does apply really nicely with the brush. It gives it a nice, beautiful airbrush finish. I feel like it gave it a really beautiful finish with the sponge. But I would have to say there's not a big difference between either or. So I would say if you want to use a sponge over a brush, then you can go ahead and do that. But it really blends out beautiful with both sides. I'm noticing it blends out absolutely beautiful. They did a really good job with the formula, with the blendability of the formula. I feel like that's something that really matters. So I would say if you're somebody that's really, really looking for that matte consistency and you want it to look completely matte right after you have applied the foundation, then you're probably going to like the primer. But like I mentioned, unless you have really oily skin, this probably will not be something for you because it's a very like thick and consistency primer. You have to work fast with it because it sets like that, like paste. So that's just something to note right there. But I do have to say, I don't know if it's the primer, but I'm not noticing on this side, so it makes me think it may be the primer. But there's little areas like right here. I don't know if you see that. Right there and right there. The product looks like it's like not really fully setting on the skin. It looks like it's breaking apart a little bit. I did go in with extra primer, as you guys remember, on my smile line. So I don't know if maybe that area right there kind of like broke it apart and that's why it looks like that. But that's just something that I'm seeing right now. And now because the foundation and primer have set in place, they're not going to move easily. Everything else looks fine. It's not getting onto any of my texture or anything like that. This side actually, I like how this turned out. It doesn't have any like areas where it's breaking apart or looking weird. It's just this one side. I don't know why. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to finish the rest of my makeup and see how it works with my other products, which I'm hoping that it works well. Hopefully it doesn't make anything like break apart or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. Real quick, I do want to say that the color, I feel like this color Golden is a really good shade for my complexion. I feel like it works well. It has those like undertones that I prefer. I feel like this is more so of a summer shade. I feel like in the winter I may want to go a little bit lighter. But Golden would definitely be one that I would get if you're on my complexion. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my makeup and then I'll be right back and give you guys my very first impressions on how this worked with everything else and how it's set for the next 45 minutes. So stay tuned. Okay, so I am back. I just finished my entire face of makeup. It is now 9:16 a.m. and we've had the foundation on for probably a good 45 minutes. So as you can see right here, that situation right here got bigger and I actually tried to go in with some concealer and fix it up a little bit, but honestly, it just got worse. It looks worse. I was about to take it off with a makeup wipe, but I honestly don't have time to reapply it. I have to leave like right now as soon as I'm done with this. But I honestly think it is the primer. I honestly really do think it's the primer because this side looks completely fine. It has no issues. It looks great. It looks good to go. It looks perfect. But I do have to say I'm not a big fan of the NYX Cosmetics primer. I feel like it did a lot of bad things in this area. Even like my blush, I had a really hard time blending it. Like it looks so much more better and seamless on the side where we used no primer than on the side where we used the primer. It's so matte and pasty and fake that it just looks so bad. So I don't like it. I'm definitely going to be returning this primer. I feel like for me, it didn't work out. It's a really mattifying primer, and it's not even that. I think it's just the fact that they made it too thick, whereas though it's hard to work with other products on top. So that's just my initial thoughts and first impressions. So I'm excited to see how this is going to wear. So far, I kind of like this side, like how the skin looks on this side better than this side, because this already just looks really, really weird. But everything else looks really good. I liked how it ended up setting overall, like as the foundation, like just judging the foundation off of its formula, I really liked it. But I think that the primer was a really big turnoff for how this side looked. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is carry on with the rest of my day. I'll see you guys in a few hours and give you guys an update on how this foundation is holding up, because I think that's so important. Also seeing it in the natural daylight. And then we can go ahead and come back at the end of the day and give you guys my final thoughts on whether the new NYX Cosmetics Can't Stop, Won't Stop foundation is worth the buy or not. Okay guys, so I am here. It is, I want to say like 5-ish. And I wanted to do a close-up of my face in natural lighting. Now, it's a little bit dark because it's about to storm and I'm about to head out, so I don't know how this is going to work. But I wanted to show you guys the foundation. It's literally been on since the morning, since I saw you guys. I think like at 8:45 a.m. Like I mentioned, it's now 5. And I'm actually really impressed with how matte and in place the foundation looks. Very, very minimum oils, I have to say. And the color is pretty good. Matches me pretty well. If you catch me looking up there, it's because I'm like looking at myself. Also, I wanted to say that I was touching my face because you guys know how some foundations can feel a little bit sticky. This does not feel sticky whatsoever. It's one of those products that once it's on, it is on and it is not coming off unless you use a makeup wipe or unless you're like ready to remove it for the day. So that's a good thing. You can still see right here those blotches from the primer situation. Still not a fan of the primer, to be honest, but I can see that the primer, I mean, it is a mattifying primer because it's keeping this nice and matte, but I think the foundation is awesome thus far. Like, look how good everything looks for how long it's been. You know what I mean? It looks really, really nice. So that's a good thing. So right now we're good with the foundation. We like it. And I'll see you guys in a little bit and give you guys my final thoughts on this new NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop matte foundation. So stay tuned. Okay, so I am back. It is now the end of the day and I'm in workout here. But I just wanted to come on here and give you guys my final thoughts on the new NYX Cosmetics Can't Stop, Won't Stop foundation. I have some really good thoughts on this, and also I have some tea on the primer. So as you guys can see, it's the end of the day and the foundation held up so beautiful. The last time you guys saw me was like 5 p.m. It is now 7:30. I'm about to go do a workout, which is why I'm all decked out in workout gear. But like, I was looking at this and I was like, whoa, hold up. This foundation is still like perfectly matte and intact and in place. And you guys did see that I actually used the primer that this also came out on this side, and no primer on this side. And guys, let me just say, the side with no primer looks just as good. Like, this means that the foundation on its own is a really, really good foundation. And that usually doesn't happen often. Usually foundations need to be supported by a really good primer for them to perform really, really well, longevity-wise. Like, in the beginning, everything looks perfect and beautiful. But when you really want to go the extra length and really make that foundation last all day long, it's hard to find a foundation that can stand on its own with no primer underneath that can really do the trick. So, I mean, not only did this test to see if the primer was good, but this also tested to see if the foundation was good. And I mean, look at this side. It's absolutely stunning. Now, I want to talk about the side that does have the primer because the primer was a huge issue for me today. You guys saw my check-in that you can still see these dots right here, and I think it really was because I really targeted this area with the primer, because I was like, it's gonna make me less shiny, it's gonna like work really well, but I feel like the primer and the foundation just don't mix really well. I feel like it makes the foundation break apart really badly. Right here you can see, like, on this cheek area, it's kind of breaking apart also, and I didn't really notice that until just now looking at it up close. that I just feel like the primer is a complete waste of money. I will be definitely returning this because now I can see, now that it's 7:30 p.m. and we've been wearing this since 8:45 a.m., I can see that this foundation doesn't need this primer. I can either use my Rihanna Fenty Beauty primer, I can use my Tatcha primer if I really wanted to like look extra perfected, but I don't have to use this primer for it to make a difference. But I think that this is absolutely worth the $13.99, $14.99. I will have the price, my color, and everything listed down below in the description box so you guys can see that, because I think this is something worth trying, because this is a really, really good formula. It competes with a lot of high-end formulas that are really good for mattifying, like Huda Beauty, Kat Von D, Faux Filter, also the Estee Lauder Double Wear. Definitely, it kind of reminds me of the Estee Lauder Double Wear in some way. Also, it's very, very close to the Makeup Forever. I feel like they're on the same wavelength. Like, they keep you matte all day long, and you guys are seeing it. Like, I don't have to tell you, I don't have to convince you, you're seeing it on my skin. So this is really good stuff. So those are my final thoughts on this foundation. I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have tried this foundation, let me know your thoughts. If you guys are interested in trying this foundation, I really recommend you going to Ulta and checking this out. So those are my thoughts. Please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed watching my foundation reviews, and also, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to my channel. I would love for you to become a member of our family here on YouTube, because we're getting so close to 20,000 subscribers and we have to celebrate when we hit it. So subscribe, subscribe, and subscribe. And that being said, I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon for a brand new video. Bye, guys.